My research question was originally how do book reviews differ across genres of books? So in order to start this, I had to sort through all of the books that I have in my library, and I couldn't put them in exact genres because there were too many in certain genres. So I went by topic. So my question then changed to how do book reviews change by topic of book? So the topics that I came up with were memoirs and short stories, children's young adult, fantasy, mystery, crime, thriller, they're all together, drama, classics, foreign language, and informational. And the number is the number of books that I had in each topic. And some of them are inaccurate. For example, children's and young adult, I have way more than 3 books in children's and young adult, but I was not, this is not an accurate picture of all of my children's and young adult books because some of them are in the attic and some of them are at school. And so that's just how that is. Some of them, classics, there were 20 classics books and some of them have a parentheses in them. This is how many books in that topic had book reviews on them, because most of the classics did not have book reviews at all. And some of the other ones didn't have book reviews on them either. So once I sorted those, I looked at the book reviews on the back and I decided, and I wrote down just who was giving the book review. So I wrote down all of the places that gave a book review on all of the books. Something that I noticed when I was doing this is that some of the ones that repeated were because the author, it was a book by the same author. For example, in the fantasy category, the books were only written by 3 different authors. All 8 books were written by 3 different authors. So there were a lot of repeats, I think mostly because they were written by the same authors. After I got through that, I changed my question because I was interested in the number of repeats that I had of the publication. So my question became this final question: which publications offer book reviews to the widest variety of books? So over here, I started by looking at the different genres and I picked the genres that I had, the publications that had more than one review for each subject. So I started by the ones that were circled. I coded them by writing them out, and then if there was another book that had the same publication, write a review about them, I circled it, and then I put a check mark, and then I put a line through the check mark so that I could count. So New York Times has a circle, a check mark, and a line through the check mark, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4 reviews. New York Times did 4 reviews for memoirs and short stories. So I wrote the publications. I started at the top and just looked at the ones that had the most, and then went through the other genres to see how many they had. And I combined New York Times with the New York Times book review, and they had 4 memoirs. They wrote 4 my memoirs, and memoirs are like memoirs and short story books. They had 4 reviews for that topic. Fantasy had 1 review. Classics had 3 reviews from New York Times or New York Times book review. Drama had 2, and mystery and thriller had 3. So New York Times and New York Times book review by far included the most genres or topics in their book reviews, and it was also the most reviews in all of the books that I own. I don't know if that says something about me, but it is what it is. Publishers Weekly reviewed 2 memoirs, 1 fantasy and 1 mystery or / thriller or crime section. Entertainment Weekly had 4 memoirs, 2 fantasy, and 1 mystery thriller. So of my books, this one had the second most. It had the same number, and actually the exact same topics as Publishers Weekly, but it had more of each of those in it. Again, a factor that plays into this is the number of authors. I think that the memoirs, there were, I want to say 4 or 5 authors in the memoirs section. So I think that some of these were probably the same author's books. So I think that might play something into it as well. And then USA Today had 2 categories, fantasy and drama. Los Angeles Times had mystery, thriller, and informational. And in looking at all of the other publications, I didn't really see any other ones that repeated more than one time on a card from another topic. So New York Times and New York Times Book Review is the publication that offers the book reviews to the widest variety of books, at least the books in my collection.